Hi, how are you? I want to thank you for supporting Mark Thompson here on the Edge Radio. Fantastic show with all the jokes and all the commentary and the politics and the bullshit. You can listen to this little pageant on iTunes or Stitcher, or you can just go to the damn website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is that dash?
edge-show.com.
Hi, it's Mark, and as promised, I said when we got a hold of Michael Shure, we could get him through. We would do a quick political segment, and we would drop it as a standalone, and that's what we're doing. The Robert Mueller statement was right after our conversation, so I'm figuring you pretty well have had the drill down on the Robert Mueller statement, so you may be pleased to know that we don't touch on that. We do touch on other things like Julian Assange, also the fleet of Democratic candidates, and also the rising tensions in Iran. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for good reviews. Thanks for clicking through the Amazon link on our website if you're going to shop Amazon. The little Amazon banner on an episode. If you click there, it takes you to the regular Amazon. And thank you, those who've used the virtual tip jar and left us something on PayPal. Thank you for that as well. Every dollar stays with the show to help keep the lights on. Now, let's get started.
This is The Edge.
The advantage, it means.
Hey, look, I just spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use.
Oh, got it.
The waiting for Michael Shure is over.
Thank you so much. Waiting is the hardest part, right, Mark?
Yeah, that's what they tell me. That's what they tell me, Michael. Certainly in this case. You know, we get letters. Now they come as emails. The kids use the digital form now.
Right. They don't go to the post office like they used to.
No, they don't. But they do ask about you and where you've been. Do you want to, in a nutshell, tell us where you've been?
I mean, more flattered I could not be. This is my favorite place to be. I've been on the road. I mean, I've been working. I've been in D.C., New York, Virginia. Where else? New Mexico, Arizona. I've just been...
Let me ask you about something. You mentioned the District of Columbia. I grew up there also.
Yeah.
They should get a vote in Congress, shouldn't they?
They should get a vote in Congress, at the very least. I don't know that they should have 2 senators. I don't know why they shouldn't, but I don't think that's in the asking. But I do think that they should have a vote in Congress on issues and on bills, which they don't have. They have a delegate, and she gets to vote, but she doesn't get to vote on binding legislation. And I think that if you pay taxes in America, you should have a representative in Congress. I mean, the whole notion of how this country was founded was taxation without representation. Right, that you could be taxed by the crown, but you don't get a vote in it. Well, here we are, and the crown is taxing D.C., and they don't have a vote. And you can understand why Republicans wouldn't want to just grant that, because it would be a default Democratic seat, probably by 85 to 90%, with 85 or 90% of the vote.
Is that the reason all along that they haven't gotten the vote?
I would suspect it would be. And if it were the other way around, I can't imagine that people wouldn't fight it. But that said, there are ways to. The Republicans have been able to gerrymander so much in so many states that they would be able to, you would think they would be able to do it.
And similarly, Michael, this is a digression, but similarly, Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I think that would be next. I mean, here's the thing with Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has a delegate, so do the U.S. Virgin Islands, so does Guam and American Samoa. The territories, they have a delegate who is part of debate representing the people there. I think in terms of Puerto Rico, there is an argument that can be made that if they are not a state and they continue to vote not to be a state, then they shouldn't have that kind of representation. And until they are a state, I think that will be problematic.
Do the people of Puerto Rico vote that they shouldn't be a state? I didn't know that.
Well, when they've had referendums, they voted against statehood. They haven't had one recently, and so I'm guessing that it may change. But I also think, one of the sort of fallacies is that automatically you would get Democrats there. They have Republican governors of Puerto Rico regularly, and they have Republican delegates as well. So it's not just a given that you're going to get a Democrat out of Puerto Rico. But I think that's a different argument than Washington.
Michael Shure, the indictment of Julian Assange, he's a journalist or he's not a journalist? Before you say anything, I know he's not like Guy. Right. Oh my God, we can't wait to rally around Julian Assange.
No, I mean, it's an alleged rapist, right? I mean, but in Sweden, there are charges against him. But that's sort of not
But
part of your question.
Yeah,
I
take
know.
him out of it, and just in this use of the Espionage Act.
Yeah, and I don't know about journalist. I don't know. He doesn't create journalism, but I do think, I mean, there are people that would argue with me about that, but I do think that there is an argument to be made for Julian Assange that he was a whistleblower, that he leaked something that should have been leaked, not unlike the Pentagon Papers, etc., back in the 70s. So what I do think, though, is that there is what's more interesting is to see the crackdown on this sort of thing over the past 10 to 12 years. Really, maybe it goes back a little farther. The Bush administration of George W. Bush was not exactly whistleblowers' paradise, but Barack Obama didn't change it much. As a matter of fact, it could be argued by some that he worsened it, and certainly Donald Trump's administration has made it. They love an enemy, they love a villain, and Julian Assange fits that bill.
Certainly the information that Julian Assange has been part of WikiLeaks and information that has gotten out through WikiLeaks, some of it has been damaging and has affected the U.S. election, you could say, and I think you could safely say it. Some of the other information has affected our view of national security and the overreach of government, and even during the prosecution of war, what goes on with our troops. So you see...
A lot of it has to do, though, I mean, and this is historic, too. I mean, it's who is the person doing it, right? When you look back at the Pentagon Papers, when you look back at the way America needs to pick the right person to be the whistleblower, to be the disturber, right? Here's the Rosa Parks example. There was a woman named Claudette Colvin. She was a teenager around the time of the Montgomery bus boycott. She was going to be the first person who wasn't going to give her seat up, but there was talk that she may have been had a teenage pregnancy, that she would not have been a great face for the bus boycott. So they waited, and then Rosa Parks stepped up. So there is something to this, that Julian Assange, as the hitman here, is the wrong person to be doing this, and that sort of hurts the information that he gets, and it also brings into question a lot of whether or not it should be questioned, certainly the veracity of what he's uncovering, because of who the messenger is, and that's problematic, and it may not be fair, but it happens, and I think that's harmed Assange and what he's uncovered.
Originally with Assange, they went after him for trying to hack, that is to say, for soliciting a hack with Chelsea Manning in government documents.
Right.
Then they actually went farther. They went after the release of the information, in effect.
Correct.
So there's a lot here. That's how it becomes this Espionage Act.
And then it also became a toy of Assange's, where they would tease the release. They would say they have something, sometimes never having anything. And so that's what I'm talking about. When you have this messenger who is a flawed messenger at best, who's holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, who is an accused rapist, who teases things that don't happen so that he can kind of control from a little room in London the world like a marionette. That hurts it. But at its core, he did what many people think is right, which is leak information that people should know about, if true.
Right. He received information, which is what a lot of investigative journalists do, what journalists across the board do.
Correct.
So the thinking is, if you blunt his ability to do that, if you blunt journalists' ability to do that, journalism goes away. I mean, any kind of real journalism goes away.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the whole idea of not having an editor and being the only arbiter of what gets released and where it came from, there are questions. With the Pentagon Papers, there were editors, there were people behind it, there were people who knew about it. With the Panama Papers, even more recently, there was the same type of thing. It was curated, and so I think that helps the integrity of what is being released, and I think that was an issue for Assange and remains one.
Yeah, that may make it a prettier picture, but fundamentally, maybe in its ugliness, because this is clunky, there is no editor, and as you're right, he seems like not a cool guy.
Yeah.
And as you say also, he sort of played it as his personal fiefdom, WikiLeaks.
Right.
For all of these reasons, this makes it more complicated because he is not likable. And they always go for the non-likable people first, just in general. Those are the people that get arrested first.
Right, that's exactly right.
Anyway, moving on, there's a huge field of candidates, and depending on the poll, on the Democrat side, Joe Biden continues to lead.
Right.
I still see the signs of of problems with Joe Biden, so much baggage, so many things said, so many votes that he's been part of, so many flawed policies that he supported. Where will Joe Biden be in 6 months? And here's my second question. Is Donald Trump legitimately worried about Joe Biden? Is that the reason we hear about him? Or is that his way of kind of pulling Joe Biden further into the race because he actually wants to run against him?
Well, no, I don't think that he wants to run against Joe Biden. I think that he sees Joe Biden as a tougher campaigner because what Joe Biden does is a little bit like what Donald Trump does. It doesn't get messed up with the issues, right? And this is a Democratic electorate, as I go around and I meet with voters and talk to them, that many are divided. You know, many Democrats are very seduced by the notion of Medicare for all, of universal health care, of gun laws, gun control laws, of
background checks for guns,
but any kind of legislation there that are looking for a minimum wage. They're looking for a minimum income, and then there are other Democrats that just want to beat Donald Trump. And many of them, even if they, and I wouldn't say it's holding their nose because Democrats, by and large, like Joe Biden. So I'm not saying they're holding their nose. They're making a decision. If they haven't already, they're on their way to or considering making the decision. You know what? I do care about this legislation. I don't want to lose to Donald Trump because I voted for someone for the nomination who just can't beat him. And Joe Biden seems like he really has a good chance of beating him. I want to beat Donald Trump. That's my first issue. And if Joe Biden is successful in making Donald Trump everybody's number one issue and healthcare second and working minimum wage third, et cetera, then he's gonna succeed. Others might try and co-opt that, though. Pete Buttigieg is trying to do that in his own way because he's not getting mired in issues either. But then you look at the polling, and you see Elizabeth Warren, who has been out there with an issue a day almost, and who's been trumpeted as that person, and she's climbing steadily in the polls. I don't think that she hurts Joe Biden. I think she probably hurts Bernie Sanders more than she hurts Joe Biden.
Could Elizabeth Warren actually win?
The presidency or the nomination?
The presidency.
I think she would have a tough time winning the presidency. That's sitting here right now. I don't think a tougher time. I don't think Donald Trump's going to win. I don't think Donald Trump's going to win because of the geography, because Democratic states that went for him last time, I don't think are going to go for him this time. That said, he won, and I didn't think he'd win last time. And he won those Democratic states, and somebody's going to have to actually now win them back because they're officially Republican states because that's the nominee won them. But I think the party will rally around Elizabeth Warren in a way that they didn't around Hillary Clinton. And I think they'll do that also around Joe Biden, maybe to a lesser extent, but I think they will.
And Bernie Sanders?
I think Bernie Sanders has a ceiling. I think Bernie Sanders without Elizabeth Warren in the race later would be more effective. I think Elizabeth Warren without Bernie Sanders would be more effective. Bernie Sanders has to do well in Iowa. He won New Hampshire last time. He lost Iowa by a whisker last time. He's got to do well in Iowa again. Iowa propelled him because he did so well there, really propelled him into New Hampshire and beyond. I think that he's going to be hurt by the fact that there are more primaries than there are caucuses this time.
Pete Buttigieg is really hot right now. Mayor Pete is making his tour. He is so impressive. He obviously speaks well, seems to know issues or know to avoid issues, however you want to look at it. But this country's not going to elect a gay president.
I don't see it.
It's just not going to happen.
One day they will.
Right.
I don't know that he's
going
to be the
first. That day's not in 2020.
It doesn't seem to be, but I don't think it's so much about a gay president. And I think this is an optimistic way of looking at it, maybe rose-colored glasses. I think it also has to do with the fact they're not going to elect a 37-year-old mayor of a Midwestern town.
No, that's probably true, too. No, he can be certainly criticized on other, but if you take Joe Biden and you make him gay, he doesn't have a chance.
Right.
A gay can't win the presidency right now. An atheist may never be able to win the presidency in America.
Yeah.
And these are things that have, nothing to do with anything, but yet they're...
Right. Although I think so. I think that these are all hypotheticals. A gay man is doing really well in the polls right now in the Democratic nominating process. I don't think he's going to be the nominee, so I don't think we're going to be able to test that. But I'd like to think that he wouldn't win because he was gay, but more because he didn't have the experience as smart as he is.
I'd like to think that too, but it would be because he was gay.
I don't think we're going to have to worry because I don't think he's going to get the nomination. And I don't think that's because he's gay.
I want to leave everybody with something light. So it looks like we're going to war in Iran.
Well, the president seems to have dialed down his rhetoric, as the kids say, on this. When in Japan he talked about it, he's not interested in regime change. But I think that what he did by sending these 1,500 troops to the Middle East wasn't about war with Iran, and it's something that the military doesn't love. But it's a bit of a compromise with the Pentagon. The Pentagon wanted to send 10,000 troops. John Bolton did. Patrick Shanahan, who's the acting Secretary of Defense, wanted to. But 1,500 troops doesn't do very much. And what it does do is say we're playing defense, right? We're sending them there as to be protection in case something happens. And America playing defense is something that the rest of the world always likes to see. So I think that it hurts in a minor way. I don't think it really makes a difference, but I don't think it's either a declaration of war.
I'm concerned that we have a naval base in Bahrain, and we have plenty of troops in the Middle East already. You don't need to send 1,500 more.
No, you don't. But that's what the Pentagon wanted to send 10,000, right?
Yeah.
So this really is whether it's a down payment, we don't yet know. But if this is all they end up having to send on the request of the Pentagon and national security officials that are put in place by this president, then I think that it's probably a best case scenario for those who don't want to see anybody go over.
Iran is an unwinnable war. They have missiles that they will rain down on Tel Aviv. This is not a situation like Iraq or Afghanistan, and I don't know that John Bolton cares.
I'm no big John Bolton fan, but
well,
but I think that he is a really aggressive sort. And I think that what's going on with this White House and with Iran is politics, right? I mean, it's creating an enemy where our enemies are nebulous now. We're pals with North Korea on the surface. We have Putin, at the back door. We're China's an enemy, but they're kind of an elusive enemy because America is so dependent on China. That having Iran back in the picture is important to this White House as they gear up for an election.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it is just politics. But boy, you can back into a shooting war real easily.
We have before, right? And many people think it's better to send 1,500 troops to Iran than to go into Venezuela, for example.
Yeah.
And that would both are
bad.
Both are bad. I'm just saying that in terms of what the capabilities of this White House are, those are both things that are on the table in some way.
Sure. You mentioned Putin. His rumored lover, who is 36 years old, lovely gal, she just gave birth to twins.
Really?
Yeah. In a Moscow VIP clinic. They have VIP clinics over there.
Right.
And she just gave birth to twins.
Right.
So if you want to send a card, I just wanted to mention it.
Right. Yeah.
What do you give the couple that has everything?
Yeah, that's true. You give them triplets.
Eastern Ukraine, maybe.
Nope, they already have that too, it seems. Yeah.
Michael, we love you. Please come visit again sooner. Michael Shure.
I will. Thank you.
That's it for our quick visit with Michael Shure on politics. A full episode of the show drops in just a few days. Thanks for all the ways you support us, and until next time, bye-bye.
This is Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Mark Thompson is a huge loser. I'm not a good friend of his. His show, very bad, weak, soft. But if you're interested in crap and you're a communist, you can go to edge-show.com. I don't recommend it.
Get more of The Edge on Stitcher and iTunes, or go to our website, edge-show.com.